Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Captivated by You, Season 1, Episode 4. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So I love that when we get introduced to one of our protagonists this episode, Mitaka, it just seems like, it seems ordinary, regular. It seems like this is the only episode that doesn't seem to have any Hayashi tie-in at all, which I think is interesting. I'm curious to see if the next episode's the same way, but either way, regardless, I was like, okay, so what's up with this? What's going to be the thing with this story? It's because Nikaidou is sitting behind him, and so this is a character that seems so like doomy and gloomy, and just his aura resonates just such bad vibes that people avoid him, because apparently rumors started going around about him. It was like one guy like made eye contact with him, fell down the stairs and hurt his leg, and then because of that it spread that like if you made eye contact with him, these terrible and bad things will go down. As we've all learned through Japanese video games and anime and manga and so on and so forth, there is nothing more powerful than rumors in a Japanese high school. And so it's grown into this life of his own, and now people avoid him because they're afraid of he'll bring bad luck to them. Apparently this one guy confronted him as a dare, like, ooh, what kind of book you reading? Are you trying to put a curse on me? Go ahead and curse me. And it's like, yeah, that guy's never worn rock, paper, scissors ever again, or something like written minuscule stuff like that. That's crazy. But Mitaka, unfortunately, is in front of Nikaidou, and so he's kind of like, all right, so maybe as long as I just avoid really interacting with him, I should be fine. But the problem is they get set up on the same cleaning duty services, and so he's like, all right, maybe I should try it and talk to him. You see if anything comes of it. He's like, hey, yo, he's like, you look like a character straight out of a Junji Ito manga, which I was like, that's super effed up. But I'm also curious if that was some of Yama Wayama's, because there is some Junji Ito, specifically spiral imagery. So I don't know if that's straight out of the manga or whether that's just some anime shenanigans fun that the animators are having. But I want to assume that's just straight out of the manga, but I don't know. But it's they definitely lean into the Junji Ito, like I said, specifically the spiral stuff, especially later on, because at one point he literally the spirals in his eyes, and then his head kind of warps and spirals, and then he's walking down the hallway and the same thing happens. I'm like, it's meant to be like an homage and wink and nod in that regard, because of it took me a while to understand that later on in the episode when Nikaidou was looking, he's like, wait, that's what he thinks of me? Because he had never read a Junji Ito manga before, so he didn't know, wait, is this what? Because, Junji Ito stuff is horror, it's twisted, it's weird. I'm only saying that having seen Uzumaki, that's my only, true foray into Junji Ito stuff, I believe. But like I said, he didn't get the reference because he's like, I don't really read manga, and it's like, oh, okay, and then they just kind of went back to not really talking, so it's like, oh. He's like, what type of stuff do you read? And he was like, nothing much, and just kind of deads the conversation. I get, hey, as someone who's terrible with small talk, it seemed like, it seems like you're cutting that off at the knees. I'm not going to continue this conversation just because I'm bad at it. Then, they're taking a quiz or whatever, he's handing something back. He snatches it from Mitaka, and Mitaka gets a paper cut. So it's the next day, because he's like, oh my god, is this already the bad luck is already trickling in, yada yada yada. But he ends up running into someone he hasn't seen since elementary school named Sato. It's actually someone he's like, whoa, she's changed so much, which is ironic because she revealed actually Nikaidou was the same way. But he's like, oh, she used to be a little chubbier. She was very shy. She never talked to him. But it's kind of that rabbit smile of hers is so cute and just, yeah, almost like a completely different person. And she's like, oh, you go to that school? Does Akira Nikaidou go to there too? He's like, wait, you do? And he's like, yeah, it's straight out of a manga. He's like, oh, yeah, I get that same feeling. And he's like, yeah, a horror manga. And she's like, yeah, he's like a prince out of a shoujo. And he's like, huh? Record scratch? Wait, what are you talking? We can't be talking about the same person, right? She's like, no, he was super popular, and so handsome, everyone fanned over him and wanted to shake his hand. I mean, Mataka was so flabbergasted, he had to take a seat on one of the nearby railings. And she's like, "Oh, isn't your bus?" He's like, "I'll take the next one." He's like, "Wait, this can't be what we're talking." She's like, "Well, he was so popular that like it's." She's like, "Most likely it's because of a trauma he had, where it's like because we went to the same middle school up until a certain point, and then he transferred to a different school." But she says like, "Yeah, he basically," and it's the opening of the episode where it's like. Nikaidou was like opens his locker and there's a whole bunch of like chocolates and stuff, but there was some like used, I can't remember, I don't think it was wipes, I can't remember the exact wording she said, but it was like some used stuff, and it horrified and grossed out Nikaidou, and it like traumatized him. He didn't come to school for like a week, and she thinks that event is what led to this. So now in retrospect, you're like, oh my God, he reinvented himself so that he could not be popular. He was so popular that he's like, I gotta nip this in the bud. I don't want to go through that trauma again. And so now he put on this like gloomy persona that pushed people away. And Sato was like, hey, like I should text you like this photo. I wish I had a photo of him, but I'd love to show you like what he was like in, when I knew him. She's like, I'll go home and look through a school yearbook. And so, it kind of worked out. Funny enough, he's supposed to be a bad luck charm. He ended up being his good luck charm because it connected Mataka with Sato. Because once again, they haven't seen each other in years. In fact, she actually would walk past his bus station all the time, but like she walks to school. So it's just like, oh, like it's funny that you finally interacting with Nikaidou like led to this happenstance. So he actually brought a lot more good in your life than bad. Funny enough. And so later on, Mataka sees the photo and he's like, oh, wait, he's like, whoa, this smile, like, he's captivated. So he's like, I want to see this smile. And so the next day at school, he's talking to him in front of everyone. He's like, whoa, what is he doing? Did someone dare him to do that? He's like, oh, yeah, you left that Band-Aid for me in my shoe, right? Yeah, I think. He's like, well, that wouldn't be enough to kind of cover everything. Mataka's like, no, it probably isn't. All right, come with me. I'm going to need to talk to you privately. And then he makes a goofy face. And then we see, like, Nikaidou like drop his like act and he kind of busts out smiling. I was like, wow, that's such a beautiful switch up. But then he's immediately like, no, I gotta go back to like depressed mode. But like Mataka brings up like, oh, this is kind of who you are, and that's what he likes is this. But Nikaidou is like, yeah, you want to be careful because he brought up earlier like, yo, if you interact with me, you're most likely going to go bald. But he ends up joking with him later. It's like, hey, my dad's bald, so even without you, I probably will end up going bald. But Nikaidou was like, well, then I'll use kind of a healing spell to kind of recover your hair. So it's like, funny enough, like, even though it was like seeing his smile and learning the truth about who he was, he's like, I'm not going to tell Nikaidou that that's why, like, I'm finally approaching him in this way. But it's actually makes me feel comfortable being able to kind of talk to you. Like, those reasons I'm not going to like really like get into, but it's like, it's nice being able to, I think, kind of know like, oh, there's this secret side of you, that this is who you really are, that the doom and gloom is just a front you put up with because you don't want to be too popular because you're scared of past trauma repeating itself. I was not expecting the story to go in that direction, and I thought that was so beautifully done. And I think it's so interesting, too, that the last chunk of the episode is giving us, like, the entire first chunk of it is Mataka's perspective. The back half is Nikaidou's side of things. So, like, him transferring to this school, he shaved his head, he tucked his, like, shirt in his pants. Even his mom was like, honey, do you really want to do that? And she's like, oh, but your hair. He's like, yeah, I thought it was going to get in my way. He was trying to make himself seem unpopular, but he was like, wait a minute. Girls like touching guys' like buzzed shaved head. He's like, oh no, do I look cuter? So he's flipping out about that. He's just like, what do I do? And he's like, I'm just going to go to the restroom. And funny enough, the person who inspired his new getup ends up being Mataka, even though they interacted once, but it's because Mataka was like, like he wore his glasses, he was drained, he was like, oh, did I miss the opening ceremony? Like, he was kind of a mess, and that in itself ended up being an inspiration for Akira. Funny enough, it's like, when we first see Mataka with the glasses and everything, and he's out of breath, he's like, did I miss? And he seems so creepy, and that inspired Nikaidou to like create the persona that he did. got fake prescriptionless glasses, hunched over. He crafted this character, and it worked out perfectly for him, in the long run. So I think that's also the nice thing for him talking, because it's almost like, hey, like this person, I'm sitting behind the person who inspired me. Because he's also trying not to break character, because it's like, yo, you are the person. I don't know if I'm not quite sure if he like, I think he didn't find out till later on and correlated that it was Mitaka who inspired him. I can't remember if he knew that ahead of time while he was sitting behind him. Because it was that was like their first year. This is like, that was during their first year, and even during the first chunk of the episode, Mitaka was like, yeah, we were in the same grade, but we were never in the same classes. We never had the same class until this year, where it's like, not only in the same class, he's sitting behind me. So I just thought that was like so beautifully done, and just thought that was so interesting. And it's like both of them got something out of it, where it's just like, Mitaka will never know that you were the inspiration for how Akira was able. If it wasn't for you, Nikaidou probably would have never been as successful as pushing people away. But this whole thing has it's almost everything coming full circle in a lot of ways, where now like Nikaidou is friends with the person who helped him in a lot of ways, kind of face his trauma by coming up with this whole thing. And also for Mitaka, it's like, I get to be friends with this person and see them for who they really are. It's kind of almost this special thing. And like I said, it worked out in the end, because like him and Sato, he's like, oh, I should probably ask her out to the movies. Funny enough, you got a good friend out of it. You kind of get this like cool secret, like him for who he really is versus everyone else. And so it's like, it's just this really interesting dichotomy that ends up being the aftermath of all this. I just thought was actually really cute and beautiful. Like even I like bust out laughing when Mitaka made that face, but also just seeing like that bright smile on Nikaidou's face, and it just kind of being like, huh. I mean, even started where it says like, both times, like both the Junji Ito question and him talking to him while they were cleaning up the bathroom, and even the whole paper cut situation, it says like you see that smile trying to break through. He's trying to like stay focused in the character, because like this person kind of threw him off his game in multiple ways, and we see that. So that's going to be interesting. I'm curious to find out if anyone we'll probably never get a conclusion to an answer to this, but I'm so curious if he's going to be able to keep that up forever, or does he eventually drop that facade? Probably not. Like I said, that's probably just going to be a bit between them to some extent. So I just thought that was just kind of a lovely episode in that regard. A lot of fun, and just it interesting dynamic. Like I said, of where I wasn't expecting that to be where the story line was going. Obviously, the next episode should be the finale. I believe it's only 5 episodes. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. Like I brought up before, I'm curious if Hayashi is going to be like in this finale or not, or if the story is going to like tie into him, considering he's like involved with all the other stories. This seems to be the only one he seemed to have like nothing to do with. Because I think I've talked about this previously. I did remember he wasn't involved in all the stories based on what I was reading, but he is like one of the few recurring like major themes throughout it. So I wasn't paying attention. I'm like, I don't think this is the same school that Hayashi and them go to at all, I don't think, but I could be misremembering. I'm interested to see how the storyline plays out, and just like what the final story is going to be. Is it going to be like this mega culmination of everything up until this point, or will it be its own story with little nods and winks and nods to the other story? I'm so curious to see how this ends up coming to an end, whether it's just a siloed off storyline with little bits and references. I'm curious to see what the story is and who the characters are, but I think based on the intro, we've kind of met all the characters from the intro and outro, I believe. So like I said, it feels like it might be a culmination, but we'll see how everything fares out in the finale. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.